We are live, peoples of Earth. Whoever shows up, good to have you here. David, howdy. Uh, it's another Wednesday, hump day, and I'm excited about this one. Let me know how the audio and also the picture are doing. Camille, welcome from the Netherlands. And let me know if it's a little too hot on the audio, if it needs to come down just a little bit, or all that good stuff. Decidedly less a little high key today. So if it looks darker, it is intentional. I just want to make sure that the picture is okay and the sound is better than the picture. Here we are. My name is Jem Schofield. Welcome to the C47's channel. This is kind of starting to be a weekly thing, though next week I will be doing a live stream, but it will be episode 3 of my series Conversations. I'm excited about it. I am going to be having a conversation with Dan Neese, who is a career camera operator and Steadicam operator who has worked on huge films over his entire career. And I've known Dan for a while, and it should be a good one. I have a feeling it's going to turn out to be a 2-week conversation, meaning 2 parts. And also, because of Dan's schedule, instead of at 9 a.m., I believe we are going to be doing Conversations next week as a live stream at 11 a.m. Pacific, and the following week also. Hey KBH, and Phil, and David, and who else do we have in here? Howdy to everybody. So there we go. Travis is here. Travis, I hope you got that Glenlivet cabinet. I don't know if you're going to go for that, but for $170 US, I think it's a good deal. And there you go. So at this channel, here we do things having to do with camera and lighting and all things production, small to no crew production, pretty much obsessively. And I'm a tinkerer, and that's what I like to do. And I like to talk about it, teach people about it, and do it for a living. Speaking of this channel, today at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern is another episode of Camera and Flask with myself, Ben Barden, and Caleb Pike. This one was probably the hardest kit challenge. If you're familiar with Camera and Flask, we do these challenges where we get dollar amounts and we have to fall within certain parameters. Really hard one. Caleb came up with this idea where we're going back in time using Wayback Machine to 2012. We have $10,000, and how do we put together a full kit? So you can check that out. I've done some social on the episode. I'll do some more after this live stream, and you can see what the parameters are. It's not easy, let me tell you, but you'll hear all the stories about it later on. So, good luck with that, Travis, and hey, Michael. And today I thought, let's do something a little bit different. Let's take a field trip over to newshooter.com. I hadn't been over there in a while, and I just thought, hey, let's take a look at some products. As always, open forum, questions about pre-production, production, working with clients, equipment, all that kind of stuff. I think we're fine. I think we can do this. Yeah, the challenge is going to be interesting later on today, and there you go. All right, so we got an open forum from Camille. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I am from what we have discussed in the past. I have an episode up where I do a basic breakdown of this space, and I don't think there's ever a perfect streaming camera. It's going to depend on your needs and what you're trying to do, and it has a lot to do with your budget as well. And of course, the answer to that question will change as new cameras come out. I have been using the Fujifilm X-T3 and X-T4. I would say on the low end, the A6400 from Sony, because it has a very strong autofocus system, and A7 III from Sony would be a good option. EOS R from Canon if you want full frame, and then if you just need 1080, there are a bunch of cameras from Canon that have dual pixel CMOS AF. Those would be good options. And then the setup itself, go check that episode out. It's not that long ago, probably a month and a half ago, where I break down sort of the setup in this particular space. But I'll be doing more of that kind of stuff in the future. And if you want a good streaming camera and you want it to have shallow depth of field, then you really need to probably have something that has good AF. I think that that's a requirement if you're doing this by yourself. KBH, I hope you do make it tonight. I'll keep checking for questions up here on the chat. So I've got that set up right there, and then what we'll do is we'll pop over to newsshooter.com in a second, and we'll start to take a look at stuff and have a conversation about some of these things, and I'll give you my viewpoints. I haven't dipped into a lot of these pages, so we'll be doing this together. So let me go ahead and share screen here, and you should be seeing that. You can give me confirmation that you are seeing that screen. Also interested to find out if you see a picture-in-picture of me when I'm doing the share screen feature, because it's not something I do a lot of in Ecamm, so you can tell me if I've completely disappeared or if you see me in this frame as well with the picture-in-picture, which I'm not saying I'm going to take it away or try to make it show up. I just want to know by default how it is working. You should be seeing the newsshooter.com website, and is the yes that you see a picture-in-picture of me? That would be good to know, so I don't pick my nose or something like that. Okay, good. So we got it. So here we are on Newsshooter's website. New film editing course that's up on MZ, and I'm just going to take a look over here at this system here. Let me turn down the screen just a little bit so it's not as bright. And we're just going to take a look at stuff on the first page. So let's just see what we've got here. So this was something I just saw. Manfrotto has just released a new version of their 504 HD fluid video head. So this is called the 504X. I have a lot of experience with the 504 HD, which I'll give you some thoughts on. This one is lighter than the previous version. Increased payload, 26.5 pounds. 4-step counterbalance. Okay. A longer sliding quick release plate is included that can be dropped in, which I like. And then they claim better performance, new fluid technology, probably from their Nitro line, I'm assuming. And the pan and tilt axes each have independent drag settings and locks, which is good. Yep, Nitro. Flat-based style, but you can pair it with a half-ball adapter. I'm hoping both a 75 and a 100. Easy link, $399 US. Interesting. Okay, well, interesting. And then you'll have to check out the comments. So let me go full screen back and give you some thoughts on this, and then we'll jump back to the site and take a look at some other products. So 504 HD, interesting head. I would say that when I first started using it, it was probably the easiest head to balance a tripod, easiest head to balance a camera system on in terms of how quick it was. What you have to be careful about when you look at payload capacity and a fluid head is that's like 26.4 pounds does not mean that you can properly balance 26.4 pounds. You have to figure out what that load is that it can take and balance it properly. I don't know if there's any data on here. I did read something on some site, I think it was Cinema 5D, that it's closer to about 14 to 15 pounds. So if you have a camera system built out and it's 14 to 15 pounds, as long as it's not too tall, because that's also another thing in terms of center of gravity and where everything is, then you should be able to balance properly. But I would say that if you're over 15, 16 pounds in terms of what your build out is of your camera system, it's going to be hard to balance it properly on this head. 504 HD performs well-ish, but if you have experience using better quality fluid heads from Sockler and Miller and O'Connor and companies like that, then it's not going to be what you expect in terms of the way it works. It's going to be okay. But what's going to happen, probably, I might be wrong about this, is over time, like the 504 HD, it's going to get crunchy. I'm hoping it's better sealed than the 504 HD. If you take that head out to the beach and things like that, it can get a little funky. So I would just say for $399 US, it's in a great price point for a fluid head. I want to get my hands on it and try it before I pass full judgment. But those are the things that I would think about when you're thinking in that realm. If you're going to look in that realm and you're going to look at heads that are in that price point, I would definitely put Benro into the mix. I think that they make some pretty good stuff, and for their price point, they're doing some nice things. Good. Okay, so we're going to go back here, and we're going to go back to the page. Morning, Michael. Hope things are well, PDX. And let's go ahead and share again and get back to business here. Okay, what else do we have? Nanlite has the Forza 200, and I know that they also, here it is, have the Forza 60B. So let's take a look at the Forza 200 and see what we've got. Keep the conversation going. And here we go. We've got, obviously, a 200-watt draw. It is daylight only. Good lux output at 1 meter. And we've got a CRI of 98, TLCI of 97. It'll be interesting to see what the SSI results are like when News Shooter does this as a review, because that helps you decide and determine how compatible a particular light might be with another light, especially when we're talking about LEDs. When you're using 14.8 volt batteries, maximum output is limited to 60. If you're using 26 volt, then you're obviously going to get full output. Looks like they're doing their own battery systems, so that's interesting. Some built-in effects, compact design, quiet cooling. I have a Forza 500. It's pretty powerful. It's definitely not silent, but it's for its output admirable. We just did a virtual event where we had that set up with some musicians, and I didn't have a problem in that kind of situation. And there you go. Shiz is still rocking the Godox SL60W, but there sure be more dope options out for sure. And let's just go ahead and scroll up here and just take a peek. We'll jump into that Forza 60B. This one's a little bit more interesting to me. We got 2700 to 6500 Kelvin. You're looking at about half the output of the 200, which is interesting. You can get a more focused output of almost 34,000 lux with the optional Fresnel lens. I like their Fresnel lens, by the way. At least for the 500. I don't know what it's like for the 60, if it's any different. $319 US. So price point is right, for sure, on the 60B. And I think that that's interesting. There's another light that was recently announced. Sorry about the fast scrolling. I'm just going to go back here and see if they have it on their homepage. Oh, here it is. The Intellitech Light Canon X100. So this one was interesting to me. We've got first bicolor focusable COB light that only weighs 5 pounds. I don't know if that means that it's the first bicolor focusable COB light or just the first that only weighs 5 pounds. I don't know. That seems like some marketing spin there. I have a little bit of experience with Intellitek. This light is interesting to me, so let's take a look here. Big feature of the light Canon, with two N's of course, X-100, is that it is tunable from 2800 to 6500 Kelvin. Spread of the light beam can also be adjusted from a tight 15 degrees to a wide and soft 70 degrees. That's a nice range. I'm interested to find out if the lens is always present on there, or but instead of mount it is on the lens, so you can still control the spread. Okay, so it looks like the lens is built into this. I'm wondering if you can remove that to just get an even wider spread. Combined AC and controller, battery options, powers by standard 14.8 volt battery. And I wonder what the output is if it's reduced. Doesn't say anything about that. DMX, some effects. Oh, that's an optional XWR. So it's like an extra controller? What the hell is that? Okay, I guess that's what it is. It's a controller. And there it is. Okay, so aircraft grade aluminum. That's good. Yoke has been over-engineered with a handbrake. That's fine. I don't mind over-engineered. Whisper quiet fan and heatsink. So if this thing is quiet, okay, here we go. So $699 US and is available now in V-mount or gold mount variants. So definitely, from what I can tell, more output than the 60B, but over twice the price. So you're looking at, would it be better for you in your kit to have two 60Bs or one of these? The big difference here, let's not forget, is the focusability of this. So I think, garden hose. I think we'll have to see what happens with Aperture's light, but this actually to me seems like a pretty interesting light overall. There's a company out there called Dado, or Dido, depending on how you pronounce it. And Dado lights are some of my favorite lights out there, including their LEDs, but they are ridiculously expensive. The way they focus light and the way they deal with their lens system, which is patented, really produces, I wouldn't say just a quality of light, but it also produces a light source, or they produce a light source where you can have a lot of precision in terms of where that light is falling. So if I'm looking to set up something for a special for tabletop and things like that, I love the Dado lights. So I don't think that we're going to get that focusability out of this X100 from Intellitek, but that's a really nice range, 15 to 70 degrees. So I would like to try that, and I like the fact that it's bicolor. Also tell me, I'm just looking at the picture right now, if it seems a little stuttery. I'm not looking at the live stream. I'm looking at me switching back and just sort of seeing the reaction of what I'm seeing there on the screen. So just let me know if there's anything there, because I'm always monitoring what's going on, especially as I start to share screens and I come back to a picture and all that. Any feedback on that is great. Let's see if there's any other comments here. Yeah, so Michael has the Nitrotech N8, generally happy. I think that's pretty much the overall feeling on that kind of stuff when you're talking about these Manfrotto heads. You're pretty much okay with them. They're getting the job done. They're not buttery smooth. They're not going to give you that precision that you would get out of a more expensive head. But, there you go. This is a question from David. On the C200, is there a way to turn off the standby on the view screen? Because when I'm coming out through HDMI to A10 Mini Pro and it's on the screen. There is. You have to go into a menu. I can't remember exactly which one it is, David, but you're going to go in there and you're basically going to turn off your on-screen displays from pushing out of that port, and then that will disappear. So it's 100% possible because I've done it many times. I just don't know exactly in what menu it is in. A small amount of stutter, like frame rate is off or something, not lag. Okay, that's fine. I'll live with that. It looks like it's kind of caught up right now. We'll see what happens. And let's go ahead and jump back to the home page here. Again, open forum, so any questions that you have related to production, things like that, for sure. And for the people that are in here right now, just to let everybody know, Cameron Flask is coming up, and I'm excited about it because we are doing some kooky stuff in the Wayback Machine 2012 Camera Kit Challenge. So there you go. In fact, you know what? For the sake of the conversation, I'm just going to quickly grab the link to that and put it into the chat so you know where that's going to be. And this is really, literally the hardest challenge we've ever done by far. We were cursing Caleb for hours, but it's okay. And if you want to see what the parameters are, and you've got 5 to 10 hours on hand, you can actually go ahead and let's see if that works. There we go. Any future MZ stuff coming from you? Chris, I did the C500 Mark II course. We're discussing updating that course with the C300 Mark III when that camera is readily available. And I would like to do more courses with them. I'm also going to be doing some new courses with LinkedIn Learning, but I believe that those courses are going to be available in their library, and I'm also going to be able to make them available. So that'll be interesting, the first time for me on that. But there you go. But I love, I love all the stuff that MZ's putting out, and happy to be part of the family. So let's see what else we've got here. Let's share the screen. Other questions can come up here in the chat, and I'm ready to answer them. I put a link up there for you to see what the challenge is and what we're doing with Cameron Flask today. I just had a brain fart, but it happens, It's what happens nowadays when you're living inside of a house that feels like a bunker sometimes and you don't leave very often. There you go. For Cameron Flask, are you using Skype to bring your guests into Ecamm Live? Victor, we are at the moment. I've spoken to the developers there. It sounds like in the future that we'll be able to bring people in and not use Skype, but that's a future version of Ecamm Live. So we don't really have a choice right now. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but it's the most easily integrated way to get people into Ecamm Live. So we basically just go ahead and I fire up the app and then go over to Skype and I connect with Ben, I connect with Caleb, they show up, so on and so forth, and Bob's your uncle. So there you go. All right, any other questions? They don't have to be related to the new shooter thing. Then we can go ahead and take a look at those. And I am monitoring the chat for general questions. Oh yeah, this one's kind of interesting. Tamron is going to be making a new lens for Sony E-mount. It's a ridiculous range. It's insanity. It's a 28 to 200 millimeter, f2.8 to a 5.6. And I saw one thing about this. It sounds pretty interesting because I don't know if they do this. Let's see. It's like where the fall off is. And again, I don't know. That's it. Oh, they got a minimum focus distance of 7.5 inches. Me likes that. 42 to 300 millimeter equivalent to full frame, because you're going to put this onto. So this is not a. Oh, it's designed for full frame. Okay, interesting. But E-mount. Okay, great. Most impressive quick focusing, blah. Focusing system also offers minimum focus distance of 7.5 inches. Moisture resistant. I don't think moisture resistant should ever be a thing. Weather resistant, let's say that. Maybe you can say that. I don't know. Pleasing bokeh. 7 blade, zoom lock. There's the inside of the lens. 18 elements, 14 groups, 7 aperture blades. Okay, so probably won't be totally round, which is all right. 67 millimeter filter size. I see some comments. I'm going to check that out. I'm interested to see where the fall off is. I believe reading something that it's kind of like the 2.8 is a 28 to almost 50 millimeters. This is from another site, so I'd like to see some of that information get updated. But, you know, this is a hard one. Fantastic range, a little long in the focal length for me personally. 28, I'd really love to see, like for me the sweet spot is 16 to 18 on a zoom as a starting focal length for it to be really usable, especially if you're using it on a, you know, APS-C Super 35 millimeter camera. But I like what I'm seeing. Hold on, I'm going to scroll really fast. Sorry about this. I forgot to check the price of this thing. Where are we coming in? Have they announced it? I don't see a price here. If you see, oh, here we go. Nope. Yeah, so they're going to compete with the Sony 24, a little bit wider, to 240. It's a 3.5 to 6.3. I think the fall off on that in terms of aperture is faster than this lens is going to be. Quite honestly, if I'm looking E-mount right now, I would personally, and I know they're going to be expensive, I would really be looking at Fujifilm's 18 to 55 and 50 to 135. You're kind of put into a corner there. Only have a few mounts that are available in those lenses. Micro Four Thirds or MFT, X mount for Fujifilm cameras, and E mount. I don't believe they have other mounts. And you can't really adapt it to other camera systems. I mean, if they could do RF mount on that, that would be ridiculous, but I don't think they can without changing the whole design of the lens. But those two lenses are parfocal, meaning you zoom in, get focus, and you can zoom in and out, and it will keep focus properly from the position that you're in. Minimal to virtually no breathing, so when you're changing your focus, it doesn't look like your focal length is changing. And huge sales on those lenses right now. They are not inexpensive, but if you're looking for zooms that are not autofocus, which will be a big difference in terms of this Tamron lens, which will be an AF lens, they're T2.9 all the way through. They're both exactly the same size. The gears are in the same place, and at about $3,000 US each right now, they're kind of a steal. I'm going to do some stuff with the X-T4 with those lenses. I have them in the house, and I've used them a lot on E-mount based camera systems like the FS7, FS7 II, and I am very, very impressed with those. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, so we got some stuff here. Let's start to do this. We have Jem. Did you hear that Canon released webcam functionality for their latest camera? Tested my Canon 60 yesterday and works great using OBS. I have, Daniel, and not only now I believe do they have Windows, but they also have a Mac beta that is available. So that's pretty exciting. Are you saying, Shiz, that Panasonic does that? I know that Fujifilm is doing it with certain cameras. I believe that is only Windows at the moment. I love it. I love that, people are doing this and they're allowing their cameras to be used as much better webcams for the things that we're doing. KBH, I know you have used some different services, Ecamm Live versus OBS versus question. What are your thoughts? Well, I did use OBS last weekend. I haven't added extra, I guess you would say, plugins or things that are widgets that are going to give it additional functionality. Definitely frustrated with the non-previewing options. We had to add some text to the stream. It was a 2-hour stream, and I couldn't change the color of the text. I could change the size. I couldn't preview what it was going to look like. There was some frustrations, and I know that that's, kind of the way OBS works is it's relatively simple, but you have to kind of expand capabilities to it. And there's some people who are doing a lot with it. It's very powerful. What I like about Ecamm Live, though it's only Mac-based, is it has tremendous functionality and capabilities, but it's very straightforward in terms of how to use it. And you can add widgets and do things like that. So, I think to each their own. OBS is not the right solution for me. And if you want to go really high end and you want basically a studio in a box, then you go Mimo Live from Boinks, or Mimo Live, depending on how you pronounce it. And I have that, and I think it's fantastic, and I may start using that for certain clients and certain types of things. When I'm just doing straight streams like this, finding that Ecamm is a good fit for me because I am Mac-based. But I'll continue to learn about all of these different systems, and I think that that's great. So let's see. You won't have any problems using Zoom, Daniel. Once a webcam is recognized as a webcam, you can use it in virtually everything, so I don't think you'll have a problem with that. Now is not recognizing the cam, so I don't know why you're having problems with the 90D. I don't know if that's on the compatibility list. People got it working with the 60D, and there you go. Boom, 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 and then there you go. Okay, Victor's asking, what camera and lens are you using for this live show? I am using the Fujifilm X-T4 and one of my favorite lenses for their system, which is the 35mm f2 weather-resistant lens. I'm probably even more partial now to the 23mm version of that lens and use that all the time. If you've ever watched this channel and you see a wider view of this room, and you are seeing more of that bookcase that's behind me and more of the space, that would be the 23mm. And I like the 23 on a crop sensor camera, APS-C Super 35, because I also feel like when I'm in smaller spaces that I feel like I'm there with the subject matter, and it's a nice equivalent. It's not quite, it's like a 35mm equivalent to full frame. And that's a really good focal length to be able to shoot a lot of different things, and it's an f2, so it's, yeah. Okay, Chris's question is a little broad, but I'll get to that in a second. Ecamm Live and A10 Mini Pro, good combo for live streaming. Yes, Camille, but I would say this. If you're just doing it yourself and you don't have clients where you're going to need to do multi-camera live streaming virtual events, then the regular A10 Mini is probably what you need. If you need to be able to get a preview out of all of your inputs, 2 or more, you can go up to 4, then I think that the A10 Mini Pro is a way to go. It has additional functionality. If you're spending the money for double the amount, but still under $700 US, A10 Mini Pro is the more versatile box in terms of being able to do what you want to do, but also provide services for clients. Because if you scale yourself up, and let's say you have a team of 2 or 3 people, then you could have somebody moderating chats, you could have somebody looking at your different feeds and deciding when to switch cameras, and it's really just about bodies in the shop and how many people you have working on that stuff. And I would just say, you have to decide whether or not you're making this purchase for a fixed location, I'm live streaming, or you're going to do something that's more expanded for you or your client. So good example of that is, for me personally, A10 Mini was the first box that I got. It works great in this type of environment for me to be able to just reach over and switch. I'm going to do some tests with Strata, which is an iOS app where you should be able to, if you connect over IP locally, switch with your iOS device, which is kind of interesting. But I got an A10 Mini Pro because the long-term goal is to build out the studio space, and when I do that, the idea is to create live production-based content, educational content, that will allow me to switch between different cameras and provide more of an interactive educational experience for people. And if I do that, I'm going to need the A10 Mini Pro, but I'm also going to need at least one or two other people to help with that workflow. So hopefully that makes sense. Orbiter or Dado Light, anybody? Chris, that is an apples to oranges conversation. Both are going to be great lights, but I think for very different purposes. And I think of Dados as smaller fixtures generally that are going to allow you, though they have some bigger lights, but smaller fixtures if we're thinking about traditional Dados, both quartz halogen and LEDs for specials and for focusable light and things like that. And yeah, that's kind of how I would be thinking of them. And they're also great if you want to use them as small sources for projecting gobos, go-betweens, and things like that. Victor says, thank you, that camera and lens combo looks excellent. It is a good combination, but I do want to always remind people that 90% of what you take a look at in an image, and I'm not talking about noise levels and things like that, is going to have to do with your lighting and composition. So you can set up a 6D or an A6400. Yes, you'll have preferences in terms of the color science and things like that, but this frame with the same size sensor, with the same focal length, with the same aperture, is going to look very similar on all of those different cameras, and it's really, again, lighting and composition that's going to make the difference. Good. KBH is waiting on the A10 Mini Pro for that very reason. Shiz, here we are. Do I recommend a PC tower? I am currently have a laptop running GTX 1050. Not sure if I should get a workstation. Blah, 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 blah. Well, so here's the thing. What beta cam? Go digibeta if you're going to go beta cam. Okay? But remember, you're standard def if you do that. You're in a 4:3 aspect ratio world. I'm old. Hold on. So Shiz, I'm not really qualified to answer that question. I will say this, and this is the only qualification I have, because I can't make the decision in terms of whether or not you go workstation or you go portable. For me, portable is really the only way to go, and I'm kind of ingrained into a Mac world. I will say this, that virtual production and some of the things that are being done, for instance, by Matt Workman, Cinematography Database, CineTracer, and the things that he's doing are really interesting to me. And really because there is no support from Macs in terms of NVIDIA graphics cards. It's kind of a non-starter in terms of, I guess, ray tracing and doing some of the things that you'd want to do with Unreal Engine and virtual production. And so you kind of have to say, okay, well, at least currently on the Mac side, you're in an AMD world, and unless Unreal and the solutions start to support those cards, or vice versa, however that all works, or both, I think you you're in a PC world if you want to do that kind of stuff. I would say that the vast majority of other things that you're doing in terms of production that we do, I mean post-production, both Mac and PC are viable options. PC's generally giving you more flexibility in terms of the graphics cards that you can use, which can be a big deciding factor. That's where my qualifications end in terms of having a discussion about that. JVC, you get the 300. That's an interesting one. Super 35mm sensor, micro 4/3 mount. That makes my head hurt. But there it is. Okay, good. So conversation keeps going here, and I still have a DVX 100B. So I'm right there with you, Shiz, even though I know you're joking. No, I don't believe so. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm qualified again to answer these questions. There may be ways to use NVIDIA cards with a Mac Pro, but I know that on a MacBook Pro that you are kind of locked into AMD, though they just did upgrade for a build-to-order option, the 5600 with 8 gigabytes, and that's a pretty powerful graphics card. And I'm kind of in primarily a Final Cut Pro 10 workflow in terms of this particular machine, while we do a lot of Creative Cloud and we do After Effects work and Premiere Pro workflows for clients. It's not on this machine, so I'm probably going to wait until WWDC, see what's announced, if there's any other little bumps to the MacBook Pro, and if there are not, then I'm basically going to max out, but not the storage, and get probably the highest end one. And it's been a long time now. I mean, we're halfway through 2020, and I got this machine in 2016, so it's showing its age for the types of things that I use it for. There you go. Got it, Chris, on the 10-bit screen support on that particular card. Okay, so let's just see. What did Max do? From videos about cameras to specs comparing MacBooks. He really did. And I think that's doing well. And from what I can tell from watching the videos, and I think this is a really important commentary when it comes to being a content creator on a platform like YouTube, it seems like Max is interested in and likes creating that type of content. And I think that that's the most important thing. Most people won't know, but when I started creating videos back in consistently 2009, 2010, I was using Blip as my hosting platform, and I was pushing all of the videos stupidly to my actual website as opposed to my YouTube channel. Biggest mistake of my life, probably, I would say. And I did 5 videos a week for the better part of 3 years. It actually went closer to 3.5 years, but if I actually broke it down to how many videos I was creating consistently, I was doing a video a day, Sunday for Monday, Thursday for Friday, so 5 days every week with the weekends off, sort of, because I was shooting something on Sunday usually. And I did that for a long-ass time. And then, there you go. Favorite color, David? That's an odd question, but it is red. So there you go. Hereditary information. Pretty much always has been. I don't know why, but I like it. And then, but I would take gray over everything, even though it's not technically a color. Gray is my favorite. Probably obvious reasons. But if you take a neutral gray background, for instance, middle gray, and you throw color at it, it will basically take on whatever color you throw at it. How the camera sees it, if you're using LEDs and color, is a whole other conversation. But gray. Okay, let's see. Sharing the screen again. Let's keep going. We don't have to go for an hour, but let's just see if there's anything else worth talking about. Airy Orbiter and Sky Panel Tech Talk. I just watched this, actually, with Florian, who I know. And this is really interesting because they're expanding their Stellar app. So I'm not really going to get into everything here. What's more impressive to me is they're opening up. Yes, they're giving more information and prices on Orbiter and their light engine and all of that fun stuff. But, you know, and they're breaking down their operating system and all of that kind of stuff. Well, I do want to see sheer output. 70 times. I still haven't figured out. I think it's going to be a little bit less than an M8 in terms of output. But, all right, we don't need to see all of this stuff. Well, you can read up on Orbiter, but hold on. So the big thing for me is that they have this app called Stellar, and they're opening that up and working with other lighting manufacturers to make it more compatible with other lighting systems. So I think Lightgear, Kino Flow, Astera, there might be one or two other companies in there. So I think that that's really interesting. Camille, I'd love Gerald to come on to Camera and Flask, by the way. And both, well, Caleb really knows Gerald well. I've met him once or twice and been involved in one thing that he did during the beginning of the pandemic, which is just a silly exercise thing. It would be great to have him on the show, for sure. And there you go. Imagine Casey, yeah, camera conspiracies. All he wants is the perfect camera. So Zcam shows upcoming HDMI to SDI converter. Okay, that's interesting. Let's take a look at that. Where does this go and sit? Okay, so it goes into their camera, it looks like. It is in the shape of a Sony NPF battery. So I guess you're powering differently. HDMI in, HDMI, SDI out, so no SDI in. And then we've got a DC out and a DC in port. Okay, it isn't the most elegant solution. I would agree. And it could become a bit of a bird's nest. Since you're using up the NPF battery slot, you also need to power the camera externally. Yeah, it looks kind of janky. Interesting. It might just be better off to use. I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, that's one I don't get. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. That's not getting me excited. Small HD Cine 7 monitors now include red and airy camera control for free. I think that's a good move. Might be a little annoyed if I paid for it, but that's okay. And I think we're done here. Hey, look. MZ Canon C500 Mark II primer course for free with camera purchase. That's my course. And I heard about this from MZ. So if you're buying a C500 Mark II from B&H, you get the course as a free download. Hey, that's kind of cool. And let's see. Is that selfless self-promotion? I don't know. And then Canon Xf 705 new firmware. I'm just intrigued. What are they adding here? They're adding, I see, more recording modes. HLG, browser remote. All right, minor updates, but interesting. Okay, I'm stepping out. I think we're done with our little field trip over to New Shooter. Some interesting things over there. Yep, Delkin CF Express, 2 terabytes. Can have more storage than most everyone's computers. Exactly. But depending on the codec, that might not be true in the format in the camera, because you start shooting some raw stuff and you are a screwhead. Let's see. Okay, now we're going back in time here, and let's see what questions we have. Dang, there was a lot of activity in that few minutes. Favorite color? How the hell did you manage that kind of daily video workload? I have no idea, Chris, but I did it. Some of the episodes were garbage. Some of them were great, though. I did some, I mean, I'm not meaning that's not like a tooting my own horn, but some of them I really enjoyed doing, and I started to dig into stuff. And it was the best learning experience for production that I ever did. I mean, I was just every single day trying to figure things out. And the comments I got were sometimes, and I just sat there really, really gutted, if you know what that word means. And then I just went back to the drawing board. And sometimes I'd spend an entire day trying to figure out how to do something based on a comment. I would do something, somebody would maybe somewhat negatively make a comment, and I was like, let's glass half full this thing and go figure out how to do it so I can, it had to ring true for me to do that. I still don't just take comments and just sort of say, oh, I'm just going to listen to what the person says. But at the same time, if there was truth to it, if I felt that the comment stung a little bit, it meant I had stuff to work on, and I still do, and man, do I have a lot to learn. Roadcaster, did you see that budget crowdfunding thing trying to be the same? I did not see that. Cameron Flask, there is room. Oh, now we get Gerald Undone, Casey from Camera Conspiracies. Victor says, are you using a custom white balance? I think right now, Victor, I settled on, my lights are basically daylight balance in here, and I went in and I just dialed in a slightly warmer Kelvin temperature of 5900 Kelvin, just to warm up the image a scotch. So that's all I did. And I am using the neg high film simulation inside the camera, which I'm becoming very partial to for some reason, and have been using that on both the X-T3 and the X-T4. I don't really understand the point of Camera Conspiracies guy. Well, he's entertaining, that's for sure, and sometimes I have no clue what the heck he's talking about. But, I can't go to that site every day and watch it, but there are times where it just sort of, as Shiz is saying, it's an acquired taste, but you just kind of need a little bit of a fix. Okay, I am happy that he's able to do his thing, whatever his thing is. Yeah, me too. If it's working, great. Gene would be great, though I have no idea how to contact him, and I have I've never had any contact with him. So yeah, but he's creating some great content, and I like how it's evolving, and he seems like a pretty down-to-earth person. Potato Jet. Love to attend a Gene workshop vacation sometime. I don't even know about those. That sounds interesting. Let's see what else we got. Still into camcorders. They have a place for sure. I agree, especially when you're doing live event production, and not a lot of those going on, but you know that. XF 705. Yeah, it's a good camera. I was supposed to do the training series on that, but that's a whole other story, because I've done a lot of the XF ones. What's going on? Repeat over and over, or is it just my end? I think you're right, David, because I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I only scrolled up a little bit, and then I'm seeing similar questions come through. I don't know why that's happening. My guess is that is a YouTube issue, because I'm actually getting your comments and reactions as a feed directly in Ecamm Live, which is also really cool. Because then I can highlight something. I can just hover over something. Like I could say, let's see, boom, there. So it goes like that. And greatest hits. Well, a lot of those episodes, Chris, were lost. That's a whole other story because of blip.tv. And was I happy or sad? Probably neither. Initially a little bummed out, but, that's the deal. So you want to see some vintage tape footage of jamming away on a guitar. I don't play guitar. I never had real long hair. I did play drums, sort of. That's a whole other discussion. There you go. You think Caleb knows Gene? Maybe. You'd settle for a reenactment. You're not getting anything with guitar. Hey, oh hey, I know. Yeah, there you go. All right, cool. All right, so good. I think we're getting close to the end here. 9:55 a.m. Pacific time, and we've got pretty close to an hour into this thing, and I think the field trip was pretty successful. It gave us some things to talk about. We got some questions coming up in the chat having to do with things. And let's just see if that link is still there. I believe this is it. Somebody could check it right now. That is the shareable link to today's episode of Camera and Flask. Again, for me, the most challenging challenge that we've ever had, the most time I've spent on it, and also probably the most fun once it was actually done, and now we get to do the episode. Love to have Curtis Judd on the show. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, and I think that we talk about audio on the channel for sure, but he really is next level. Back when you were saying you get the course for free at C500, it repeated over and over. Yeah, Curtis would be great. Absolutely. I would love to have him on the show. And there we go. Yeah, you're welcome, Camille. Thanks for coming by. Next week, as I said, we will be shifting the show time for the channel to 11 a.m. Pacific time, and that will be the third in the series of conversations, probably part 1 of 2 with Dan Neese. Amazing career, Steadicam operator, DP, all of that kind of stuff. And we've got Camera and Flask coming up later today. One last question. What's your go-to video news site aside from News Shooter? Cinema 5D would be the other one that I go to on a pretty regular basis. So it's really those two as a resource. And I like it because they both cover different things. There's a lot of crossover, but there's some things that they do over there like Nino and Johnny, which is a little bit different than what they're doing over like Matt and Eric and those guys are doing over at News Shooter. So that's the other one. I'm going to do, yes, so there's going to be I'll post it during Camera and Flask, but we're going to do a happy half hour, which we push to the 40 minutes usually, about 5 minutes after Camera and Flask ends, and that'll be something that people can just join and have a chat and ask some questions. And yeah, Curtis I don't think is a problem to get onto Camera and Flask. I don't think that's an issue. So we'll figure that out at a future date. We all know Curtis pretty well, so I think that's cool. Hey, thank you for coming, and thank you for your questions. Thank you for the interaction. If you know people who you think would benefit from the content that's on this channel, please let them know. Subscribe. Have them subscribe. The more the channel grows, the more content I can create for everybody. And I think that's about what we've got, except for come to Camera and Flask. Tell people about it. Let's get a lot of people in the chat, and we can do what we do best here on the channel, the C47. And thanks, everybody. I'm going to click finish, and I'll see you in a few hours, hopefully.